Nung, I needed to know. You're pregnant? Michael asked, his voice hollow. Bethany's laugh was brittle. Of course not. Where would you get that idea? But I'd seen the way she'd automatically placed a protective hand over her stomach when Martha mentioned becoming a father. I'd noticed she wasn't drinking champagne with her friends, just holding a glass. Small things, but fathers notice these things. Your mother called last week, I said carefully. She mentioned how excited she was about the big news this weekend. Said she was already shopping for baby things. Michael turned to his wife, confusion written across his face. Bethany! She stepped back, bumping into my father's workbench. This is ridiculous. I'm not pregnant. Then why would your mother think you are? Martha asked gently. Something ugly flashed across Bethany's face. Fine, I was pregnant, I took care of it 3 weeks ago. It wasn't the right time. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the old building seemed to hold its breath. You what? Michael whispered. Without telling me. It was my decision to make, Bethany said defensively. And I made it. End of story. Not end of story, Michael's voice cracked. That was my child too. A clump of cells, Michael. Not a child. She turned to us, her voice hardening. And now your parents have ruined everything as usual. I watched my son's face as reality crashed down on him. The truth about his wife. The child that would never cradle in his grandfather's handwork. The future that had been decided without him. You should have told me, he said, his voice low and dangerous. Why? So you could get all sentimental like them? She gestured toward us. We agreed children weren't in our 5-year plan. The business is just taking off. We're about to buy the Fisher property. A baby would ruin everything. The Fisher property? I interrupted. The lakefront development? Bethany's eyes narrowed. Yes, we're investing in a luxury condo development. It's going to transform this entire lake. The pieces suddenly clicked into place. Why they'd been so interested in the cabin's deed. Why Bethany had been pushing for renovations that would increase property value. The friends who were really potential investors. You're turning the lake into condos, I said flatly. Just the East Shore. For now. She lifted her chin defiantly. This whole area is wasted on vacation cabins used 3 months a year. Do you know what lakefront condos go for in this market? Michael looked like he'd been struck. You never told me it was this lake. You said it was on Winnipesaukee, but not. Does it matter? Real estate is real estate. And this place has been undervalued for decades. This place is our family home, Martha said, her voice trembling with anger. It's a run-down cabin that hasn't been updated since the 70s, Bethany shot back. The property is worth 10 times what the building is. Anyone with business sense can see that. I looked at my son, really looked at him. Did you know? About selling off the lake. His silence was damning. Not the specifics, he finally said. I knew she was working with developers. I didn't know it was this lake or that close to our property. Our property, Bethany corrected. Once your parents are gone, this place is ours to do with as we please. The development company already made an offer. You got an offer for our cabin? My voice was dangerously quiet. A preliminary one. She straightened her shoulders. 6 times market value if we can deliver within the year. Deliver. Martha repeated. Like we're a package? This is our home. It's a business opportunity, Bethany insisted. And frankly, a better investment than preserving some outdated family sentimentality. Through the grimy window, I could see the cabin. Lights glowing warm against the winter darkness. Strangers moving through rooms where my family had lived and loved for generations. I wondered how many of them were real friends, and how many were potential investors circling like vultures. So that's why you brought everyone here, I said slowly. Not for your birthday. You're showing off the property, drumming up investors. Bethany didn't bother denying it. Business and pleasure. What's wrong with that? What's wrong is you didn't tell us, Martha said. What's wrong is you're planning to tear down our family home without even discussing it with us. We're discussing it now, Bethany said coldly. No, you're not, Michael interrupted. His voice had changed, hardened somehow. There's nothing to discuss because it's not happening. Bethany stared at him like he'd grown a second head. Excuse me. I said it's not happening. He turned to face her fully. You terminated our pregnancy without telling me. You're planning to destroy my family's home without telling me. You've been lying to me, Bethany. Don't be dramatic, she said dismissively. I made practical decisions for our future. And I brought you into the cabin deal. You've seen the projections. What I've seen, Michael said slowly, is you manipulating me, using me to get to my parents' property, using my name to push through your development deals. Bethany's laugh was sharp and brittle. Oh, please. Now you're just being paranoid. Am I? Michael turned to me. Dad, can I see those envelopes again? I handed him both, the revised will and the preservation trust offer. What are those? Bethany demanded, trying to peek over his shoulder. Michael opened the thicker envelope first, scanning the legal language of the revised will. His face gave nothing away as he read about the conditions we'd placed on his inheritance. No selling, no major renovations, family use only. Then he opened the second envelope. You're really considering selling to a preservation trust? He asked quietly. We're considering all options, Martha replied, including protecting this place from becoming a condo development. Michael nodded slowly, then turned to Bethany. How long have you been working with Fisher Development Group? She blinked, clearly surprised he knew the name. 6 months, why? Interesting, he said. Because their CEO, Jim Fisher, has been under investigation for 3 months. Environmental violations, permit fraud, contractor kickback schemes. Now it was my turn to be surprised. How do you know that? Because I'm the one auditing their books. Michael's voice was flat. My firm was hired by the state investigation team. I've been under NDA, couldn't tell anyone. Not even my wife. Bethany's face drained of color. That's not possible. The indictments are coming next week. Fisher, his CFO, and 3 board members, and anyone who knowingly partnered with them. Michael's eyes held a coldness I'd never seen before, which apparently includes my wife. I didn't know, Bethany stammered, backing toward the door. Jim never said anything about investigations. Of course he didn't. He was using you to quietly secure properties before the news breaks. Michael shook his head. And you were using me to get to my parents' cabin. Perfect partnership. Outside we could hear laughter from the cabin, the party continuing without its host. I need to get back to our guests, Bethany said, her composure cracking. Your guests, Michael corrected. Your investors. Your problem. She looked between us, searching for an ally and finding none. This isn't over. That cabin will be worth a fortune once the East Shore development is complete. There won't be an East Shore development, Michael said calmly. Fisher will be lucky to avoid prison. The company will be tied up in litigation for years. Then we'll find another developer. Her voice rose hysterically. That property is a gold mine just waiting to be dug up. No, I said firmly. It's a family home waiting to be preserved. Bethany's face twisted with contempt. Family? You're also obsessed with family. What has family ever done for any of us, except hold us back? Martha stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. Family built this cabin board by board. Family maintained it through good times and bad. Family makes sacrifices so that future generations can have something meaningful to inherit. Not just property, but values, history, love. How quaint, Bethany sneered. I prefer cash. Michael looked at his wife as if seeing her for the first time. Did you ever love me at all? Or was I just your access to property and connections? Something flickered in Bethany's eyes. Perhaps regret, perhaps just calculation. Of course I loved you. I still do. But love doesn't pay bills or build futures. Neither does destroying family legacy, I said. The silence that followed was broken by the distant sound of car doors slamming. Through the window we could see several of Bethany's friends leaving, carrying their overnight bags back to their vehicles. What are they doing? Bethany pushed past us to get a better view. Another car started up, headlights cutting through the darkness as it pulled away down our driveway. Looks like your investors are leaving, Martha observed. They can't leave. They haven't seen the property plans. Bethany fumbled for her phone. I need to stop them. Michael caught her wrist. Let them go, Beth. It's over. She yanked her arm free. It's not over until I say it's over. She stormed out of the boathouse, her voice carrying back to us. This isn't finished, Michael. You'll regret crossing me. We watched through the window as she ran toward the cabin, trying to intercept the departing guests. Most ignored her, sliding into their expensive cars and driving away. The few who remained looked uncomfortable, trapped between loyalty and self-preservation. I'm sorry, Michael said quietly once she was gone. I had no idea how deep this went. How much did you know? I needed to ask, even though the answer might hurt. He sighed, suddenly looking exhausted. I knew she was involved with some development group. I knew she thought the cabin was underutilized, But I didn't know about the pregnancy or the specific plans for this lake. He ran a hand through his hair. I've been so focused on the Fisher investigation, I missed what was happening in my own marriage. Martha touched his arm gently. What happens now, legally? Fisher Development will implode once the indictments drop. Any contracts they've signed will be worthless. He looked toward the cabin, where Bethany was visibly arguing with the remaining guests. Personally, I don't know. I picked up the unfinished cradle, running my fingers over the smooth wood my father had shaped with his hands. Your grandfather never got to finish this, but he left everything prepared for the next generation to continue. Michael nodded slowly, understanding the deeper meaning. I've been blind, Dad, letting Bethany push us apart, forgetting what matters. Through the window we watched as another car pulled away. Only Bethany remained on the driveway now, standing alone in the snow, her birthday party evaporating around her. I should go talk to her, Michael said, though he made no move toward the door. You should, I agreed. But first you need to decide where you stand. What do you mean? The cabin, the development, your marriage. I gestured toward the driveway where Bethany stood shivering. There's a choice to be made here, son, about what kind of legacy you want to build. Michael looked at the cradle, then at the letter from his grandfather, then at his wife standing alone in the cold. Something shifted in his expression, resolve hardening like lake ice in December. I know where I stand, he said quietly. I stand with family. He walked to the workbench and picked up my father's old chisel. I'd like to learn how to finish this cradle someday. Even if... He didn't complete the thought. Your grandfather would have liked that, Martha said softly. We watched as Michael squared his shoulders and walked out of the boathouse toward his wife. The confrontation that awaited wouldn't be easy. Some betrayals cut too deep for simple forgiveness, but as he crossed the snowy yard, I saw my father in his determined stride. The Whitaker legacy continuing, one footstep at a time. Do you think they'll work it out? Martha asked, slipping her hand into mine. I don't know, I answered honestly, but I know our son has found his way home. Through the window, we could see Michael reach Bethany, their bodies tense, voices too low to hear, but their shadows stretched long across the snow, two separate figures no longer moving in the same direction. Should we go to him? Martha asked. I squeezed her hand. No, this part of the journey is his alone. As darkness settled fully over the lake, the confrontation outside grew more heated. Bethany gesturing wildly, Michael standing firm. Then she pulled something from her pocket, car keys glinting in the porch light. Thomas, Martha whispered. She's leaving. We watched as Bethany turned sharply and stormed toward her SUV. Michael made no move to follow her. She stopped at the driver's door, turning back one last time, saying something we couldn't hear. Then she was gone, tires spinning on the snowy driveway, leaving nothing but tracks that would be covered by morning. Michael stood watching until her taillights disappeared around the bend. Then slowly he turned back toward the cabin, our cabin. His shoulders were slumped, but his steps were steady as he walked back toward the home his grandfather had built, where his parents waited, where memories lived in every hand-planed board. I think, Martha said softly, we should put on some coffee. I nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. Our son was coming home wounded but whole, and we would be there as we'd always been, ready to welcome him back. Yes, I agreed. Coffee sounds just right. Martha brewed coffee while Michael and I sat in silence at the kitchen table. The cabin felt different now, like a ship that had weathered a storm, creaking as it settled back into calm waters. Through the window we could see tire tracks in the snow where Bethany's SUV had spun away, carrying her anger into the night. You think she'll come back? I asked finally. Michael stared into his coffee mug like it held answers. I don't know, Dad. Maybe, but not tonight. His voice sounded hollow, drained of the defensive edge that had colored our conversations for years. The mask was gone, the one he'd worn trying to please Bethany while not completely betraying us. What remained was just Michael, raw and uncertain. I'm sorry, he said suddenly, about everything. The cabin, the development plans, Thanksgiving. It's not all your fault, I replied. Marriage is complicated. You get caught up trying to make your spouse happy, sometimes at the expense of everything else. Is that what happened to me? He looked up, searching my face. Did I just disappear into what Bethany wanted? Martha set a plate of cookies on the table, the same recipe her mother used to make when Michael was a boy. I think, she said gently, that love sometimes blinds us to things we'd normally see clearly. Michael took a cookie but didn't eat it. Just turned it in his fingers like he was examining a strange artifact. She wasn't always like this, you know. When we first met, she was funny and ambitious and kind. People change, I said. Or maybe they just reveal who they really are given enough time. The cabin development was her idea from the beginning, Michael admitted. She met Jim Fisher at some charity event last spring. Started talking about unlocking the property's potential. I should have shut it down right then. Why didn't you? Martha's question carried no accusation, just genuine curiosity. Michael's laugh was bitter. Because she made it sound reasonable. Your parents are getting older, she'd say. They can't maintain that place forever. We'd be doing them a favor. And I half believed her. I thought about all the small compromises we make in relationships, the little surrenders that seem harmless until they add up to giving away your soul piece by piece. What about the pregnancy? I asked softly. Did you know? His face crumpled. No, not until today. We'd talked about waiting a few years. Career first, then family. That was our agreement. He rubbed his eyes. But she could have told me, should have told me. That was our child, too. Martha reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. I'm so sorry, Michael. The worst part? He looked up, eyes shining with unshed tears. For a minute there, before she said she'd terminated, I was happy. I thought, we're going to have a baby. I'm going to be a dad. I could already see myself teaching them to fish off the dock, just like you taught me. The familiar weight of fatherhood settled on my shoulders. That mixture of pride and pain that comes from watching your child suffer and knowing you can't fix it. What happens with the Fisher investigation? I asked, changing the subject to give him a moment to compose himself. Michael straightened, professional mode engaging like a protective shield. Grand jury indictments next week. Fisher, his CFO, 3 board members, and possibly some of their partners. It depends on how much evidence we've gathered on who knew what. Could Bethany be in trouble? Martha asked. I don't think so. She's small fry in their operation, probably just someone they were using. He sighed. Though that's going to be cold comfort when Fisher. Development implodes, and those property options she's been securing become worthless. I looked around the cabin at the knotty pine walls my father had fitted together. The stone fireplace where we'd roasted marshmallows on countless winter nights. The scratches on the floor where Michael had once raced toy trucks. This place was never about property value, I said quietly. It was about legacy. I know that now, Michael replied. I think I always knew it deep down. I just got lost for a while. A comfortable silence fell between us. Outside, snow had started falling again. Soft white flakes erasing Bethany's tire tracks, like nature was helping us start fresh. Around midnight, we finally went to bed. Martha and I to the main bedroom, Michael to the small room upstairs that had been his since childhood. I lay awake for hours, listening to the familiar sounds of the cabin settling, wondering what tomorrow would bring. Morning arrived with blinding brightness, sunlight reflecting off fresh snow. I made coffee and stepped onto the porch, inhaling the clean winter air. The lake stretched before me, a perfect expanse of white. No development on the eastern shore. No condos looming on the horizon. Just nature, as it had been since my father first brought me here as a boy. The sound of tires on the driveway broke the silence. Not Bethany's SUV, but a county sheriff's cruiser pulling up to our cabin. My heart sank as an officer stepped out, adjusting his hat against the glare. Mr. Whitaker, he called. Thomas Whitaker. That's me, I replied, setting down my coffee mug. Something wrong, officer. Got a complaint last night about a disturbance at this address. He approached the porch, notepad in hand. From a Mrs. Bethany Whitaker. Says she was forced to leave the premises after a confrontation. Michael appeared in the doorway behind me, his face pale. Officer, I can explain. That's my wife and she called from the Lakeside Inn around midnight, the officer continued, glancing between us. Said there were unauthorized investors at the property and that her in-laws were interfering with legitimate business activity. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Officer, this is our family cabin. Has been for 3 generations. Those investors were her friends she brought without our permission. The officer nodded, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Well, sir, I'm just following up on the complaint. Mrs. Whitaker also mentioned something about property development plans being sabotaged. Michael stepped forward. My name is Michael Whitaker. I'm a forensic accountant with Collins and Associates, currently working with the state investigation team on the Fisher Development Group case. The officer's eyebrows shot up. Fisher Development? The ones in the news? Yes. My wife has apparently been working with them without my knowledge, attempting to secure property around this lake, including this cabin which belongs to my parents. Understanding dawned on the officer's face. I see. That explains a few things. We've been hearing rumors about that development for months. A lot of locals aren't too happy about it. Neither are we, I said firmly. The officer closed his notepad. Well, Mr. Whitaker, both Mr. Whitakers, I don't see any evidence of a disturbance here. Just looks like a family disagreement to me. I'll note that in my report. As he turned to leave, he paused. Just so you know, Mrs. Whitaker checked out of the Lakeside Inn this morning, heading back to Boston according to the front desk. After he drove away, Michael and I stood in silence, watching fresh snow fill in the cruiser's tire tracks. She's running, Michael said finally. She knows the Fisher indictments are coming, and she's trying to distance herself, and blaming us for everything falling apart, I added. Martha joined us on the porch, wrapping a sweater around her shoulders. What now? Michael took a deep breath. I need to go back to Boston. Deal with whatever's left of my marriage, and make sure I'm separated from anything to do with Fisher before the indictments drop. I nodded, understanding this was just the beginning of a long, painful process for him. And the cabin? Martha asked quietly. Michael looked out over the lake, his expression softening. The cabin stays exactly as it is. Grandpa's legacy, our family home. He turned to us, something resolute in his eyes. When Bethany and I split, this place isn't part of the negotiation. It's family, not property. The weeks that followed brought a flurry of activity. The Fisher indictments made national news. A sprawling investigation into environmental violations, permit fraud, and investor deception. Jim Fisher's smug face appeared on business channels, maintaining his innocence even as the evidence mounted against him. Bethany wasn't indicted, but her name appeared in several news stories as a consultant to the development group. Michael filed for divorce the day after the indictments, citing irreconcilable differences. She contested it bitterly, demanding half of everything, including any future interest in the cabin. Michael called us every few days with updates. The divorce was getting ugly. Bethany had hired an aggressive attorney who specialized in high-asset splits. They were claiming Michael had known about the pregnancy and agreed to the termination, that he'd been fully aware of the development plans, that he'd concealed his work on the Fisher investigation to sabotage her career. She's trying to rewrite history, he told me one night, his voice exhausted, making me the villain in her story. People tell themselves whatever they need to hear, I said, especially when they're in the wrong. Her lawyer's demanding the cabin be included in the asset division. Says it has significant future development potential. My blood ran cold. Can they do that? It's not even yours yet. They can try, Michael replied grimly, but I'm not giving in on this. Not the cabin. Never the cabin. 3 months after Bethany's birthday weekend, we received a formal letter from her attorney. It outlined in clinical legal terms their position that the cabin represented a significant inheritance expectation that should be considered in the divorce settlement. They offered a generous compromise. Michael would retain ownership rights, but they would place a development easement on the property, allowing Bethany to partner with future developers on the land. She never gives up, does she? Martha said, hands shaking as she read the letter. No, I agreed, but neither do we. The morning we were scheduled to meet with Michael's attorney, I woke before dawn and went down to the dock. The lake was still, reflecting the fading stars like a perfect mirror. My father had proposed to my mother on this dock. Michael had taken his first swim from these weathered boards. 3 generations of memories, embedded in wood and water. I pulled the old envelope from my pocket, my father's letter that we'd found in his workshop. Rereading his words in the growing light, I felt his presence beside me. A house is just walls and a roof, but a home is built from memories and sacrifice and love. Don't let anyone tear down what can't be rebuilt. By the time I returned to the cabin, Martha had coffee waiting. You were up early, she observed. Just thinking, I replied, folding the letter carefully. About what my father would do, Martha smiled. And? He'd fight, not with anger or bitterness, but with truth. The meeting took place in a sleek Boston law office, all glass and steel, everything our cabin wasn't. Bethany sat across the conference table, designer suit and perfect makeup, creating a shield of professional detachment. Her attorney, a sharp-faced woman with predatory eyes, had spread documents across the polished surface like battle plans. Michael sat beside his own attorney, a calm older man who reminded me of my father, steady, unflashy but with a backbone of steel. Martha and I had been invited as interested parties since the cabin was currently our property. "Let's cut to the chase," Bethany's attorney began. "The cabin property has significant development potential that Mrs. Whitaker helped identify and cultivate. We believe this future value should be recognized in the settlement." Michael's attorney leaned forward. "The property in question belongs to Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Whitaker. My client has no current ownership interest to divide, but he has inheritance expectations," Bethany's lawyer countered, "which Mrs. Whitaker significantly enhanced through her professional expertise." I'd been silent until now, but something in her words triggered a response. "Enhanced," I said, my voice steady but firm, "by trying to tear it down and replace it with condos." Bethany's eyes flashed. "I was trying to maximize its value. That place is worth 10 times more as developed property than as some rustic family retreat." "To who?" Martha asked quietly. "Worth more to who? Not to us?" The lawyers tried to redirect the conversation back to legal terms, easements and valuations and future interests, but something had shifted in the room. This wasn't about property law anymore. It was about values. "I'd like to share something," I said, pulling my father's letter from my pocket. "If you'll allow me." Bethany rolled her eyes, but her attorney nodded cautiously. I unfolded the yellowed paper and read my father's words aloud. His thoughts on legacy, on building something that lasts, on the difference between a house and a home. When I finished, the room was silent. "That's very touching," Bethany's attorney said finally, "but sentimentality doesn't factor into property division under Massachusetts law." "Actually," Michael's lawyer interjected, "it very much does when it comes to inheritance expectations." He produced a document of his own. "This is the current will of Thomas and Martha Whitaker, properly executed and witnessed. You'll note the specific conditions regarding the cabin property." Bethany snatched the document, scanning it quickly. Her face darkened. "Conditions? What conditions?" "The cabin can only be inherited if it's maintained in its original character," Michael explained. "No development, no substantial alterations, family use only. If those conditions aren't met, it goes to the Winnipesaukee Preservation Trust." "That's ridiculous," Bethany sputtered. "You can't do that." "Actually, we can," I said calmly. "It's our property, our legacy, our choice." Her attorney leaned in, whispering urgently. Bethany's face cycled through emotions: anger, calculation, defeat. "Fine," she said finally. "Keep your worthless cabin. But I want compensation for the professional opportunities I've lost because of this divorce." The negotiation continued, but the cabin was off the table. The fight had shifted to financial assets, career impacts, personal property, things that could be valued in dollars, not memories. As we left the meeting, Michael pulled me aside in the hallway. "Thank you," he said simply, "for protecting what matters." "That's what family does," I replied. "Your grandfather taught me that. Now I'm teaching you." Spring came to Lake Winnipesaukee, melting the snow and revealing the earth beneath, ready for new growth. Michael drove up from Boston every weekend, working on the cabin like a man rebuilding more than just a structure. He replaced worn boards on the porch, repaired the roof damage from winter storms, and in the boathouse workshop, he slowly, carefully continued his grandfather's work on the cradle. His divorce finalized quietly, with no development easements and no claims on the cabin. Bethany took a job with a real estate firm in New York, as far from Boston and the Fisher scandal as she could get. The Eastern Shore development never materialized. The indictments had scared away investors, and the land returned to its natural state, trees and shoreline and wildlife, unbothered by human ambition. On a warm June evening, Martha and I sat on the dock, watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of gold and crimson. Michael appeared from the boathouse carrying something wrapped in a blanket. "I finished it," he said, setting the bundle between us on the dock. Martha gasped as he pulled back the blanket, revealing the cradle, complete now with every carved detail polished to a soft glow. 3 generations of hands had touched this wood. My father's beginning the work, my guidance preserving it, Michael's determination completing it. It's beautiful, Martha whispered, running her fingers over the carved pine trees and mountains. Michael sat beside us, dangling his feet in the water like he used to as a boy. I've been thinking a lot about legacy lately. What we leave behind. What matters? And, I prompted, and I realized something. Bethany was right about one thing. This cabin is valuable, just not in the way she thought. He looked out over the water. Its value isn't in what it could become, but in what it already is. A container for memories. A link between generations. I nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. Your grandfather used to say that the best investments aren't the ones that make you rich, but the ones that make you whole. Michael smiled. I've been seeing someone, a kindergarten teacher named Sarah. She's nothing like Bethany, quiet, kind, no interest in status or money. He paused. I brought her here last weekend. She loved the cabin exactly as it is. Does she know about the cradle? Martha asked. Not yet. His smile widened. But someday I hope she will. And maybe someday it'll hold our child. Another generation of Whitakers to love this place. As darkness settled over the lake, I thought about cycles. How things that seem lost can be found again. How endings can become beginnings. How sometimes the most valuable things we own are the ones money can't buy. You know, I said, your grandmother and I will be leaving you this cabin someday. But the truth is, it was always yours. From the moment you were born, it was being held in trust for you and for your children after you. I know that now, Michael replied, and I'll make sure it's here for them too. Exactly as it should be. We sat in comfortable silence. 3 generations connected by more than blood, connected by values, by choices, by the understanding that some things shouldn't change, no matter how the world around us does. The cradle rocked gently in the evening breeze, empty now but full of possibility. Like the cabin itself, a vessel waiting to be filled with the laughter and love of generations yet to come. In the end, Bethany and her friends hadn't changed anything important. Their fancy SUVs had left no lasting tracks. Their development plans had evaporated like morning mist. All their schemes and ambitions had broken against something stronger, the legacy of a family that knew what really mattered. Our daughter-in-law had brought 15 friends to our winter cabin, thinking they could take what wasn't theirs. But our plan, the plan my father had started, that Martha and I had protected, that Michael would continue, had been waiting all along. Not a plan of revenge or retaliation, but of preservation. Of remembering that the most valuable things in life can't be developed, subdivided or sold to the highest bidder. They can only be cherished, protected and passed down, one generation to the next. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also, let us know in the comments how you would rate this story from 0 to 10. Your support helps us create more content just like this. Thank you for listening.